sometimes feeling like I was not going to make it from one month to the next. I didn't want anybody knowing that. So I thought if I could buy some custom made boots and if I could buy a Hummer or some other nice truck or whatever. I mean, one time I was driving this King Ranch F-250. For those of you who don't know what trucks are, an F-250 is a 3/4 ton truck. It's the big one. It's the one that people use to haul stuff. This thing would haul a bulldozer if I needed to. 4-door King Ranch is, and if you don't know what King Ranch is on the Ford, it is like top of the line with the special King Ranch leather seats and all this stuff, and it's very expensive. I had one of those, 4-wheel drive, F-250. I never took it off-road, and I never hauled anything. Dumb, stupid, moronic, but it made me look successful. Well, hey there, everyone, and welcome to the Jason Wright Show. Today is going to be a bit of a confessional, if you will. A lot of transparency is about to be coming at you real quick. But before I even get started on the confessional, the transparency, and all of this, I would like you to do me a favor. Please consider going out and subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to leave a comment, even if it's, Jason, you really suck. I couldn't stand that. I will never listen to you again. Just something. Preferably you'll leave a comment to the effect of, wow, I didn't know that, or something that you found beneficial, or ask a question. But please consider doing that if you're watching this on the YouTube channel. And if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple, I would really appreciate it if you would leave us a 5-star rating. And I think on Spotify, you can ask some questions. That helps as well. So just please help the show out. I'm going to try to keep making it better and better and better because, like the sign says, my goal is to improve always and always. So as you probably saw from the title of the show, this is a little bit different than most of the business advice that you normally get on the YouTubes or out there on the social medias and on the interwebs at large. I'm going to tell you exactly how you can destroy a business. And here's the cool thing. This isn't going to be some theoretical, hypothetical, well, if you do this and do this, or don't do that, or if you don't manage your P&L to this extent, or if you take your mind off of the time cost of capital, or some other wonky nonsense that you could get in a textbook or a business school class. That's not what this is. This is going to be a lesson in life that I learned the hard way. This is how I destroyed my first business. And before we get into that, I want to give you a little bit of history. And for those of you watching also, and for those of you not, you'll see that I have a beautiful pair of custom alligator boots with an SMU Mustang cap setting on top of them. Now, I'm going to tell you that's not just some kind of silly decor that I decided to spice up the studio with. No, those have a reason. I'm going to tell you about them because both of them helped me to destroy my business. And I'm going to tell you how that all worked out. But first, a little history. So I was the first member of my family to go to college. And so when I got to Stephen F. Austin State University in Nacogdoches, Texas, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I remember my first day of classes, how in the hell I ever pledged a fraternity and had any success is beyond me, because my first day of class, I remember I wore, I kid you not, a Peter Brady t-shirt. It was this t-shirt that had Peter Brady on it. Some Gerbeau jorts. So a lot of you listening, if you're young enough, you don't even know what Gerbeau is. Go check it out. I think the competition to Gerbeau was Z Cavaricci, worn by none other than A.C. Slater, played by Mario Lopez on Saved by the Bell. I was a Gerbeau guy, and I had Gerbeau shorts. Oh, and yes, the Peter Brady t-shirt was tucked in, and I had a braided leather belt that was like 4 feet too long that you made the little knot in. It was awesome. I had probably had some white socks pulled up about mid-calf and some Nike Agassi tennis shoes or something like that. And I was riding a bright snot green Murray, not a Trek, not a Specialized, nothing like that. Not a GT. No, a Murray bike that I had not raised the seat on. So I'm low riding on this snot green bike in my Peter Brady t-shirt with a backpack on, about to go to my first day of classes at Stephen F. Austin State University, the first member of my family to ever do such a thing. So yeah, I was representing the Wright brand very well. And so I only bring that up because I want you to know that the fact that I got through college was somewhat of a miracle. My first semester, I really stunk up the joint. It was terrible. I didn't do very well. I was playing football at the time. I went to SFA on a football scholarship. And then by my second semester, I started to get it together. I didn't want to play football. I realized that was just a job and I could get other jobs to put myself through school. So I gave up my football scholarship. And then that's whenever I pledged a fraternity and I sort of got my groove and ended up being very, very good at college. I made decent grades and I had to study really hard to do it because I'm not a naturally gifted academic person, but I did well. Was president of my fraternity, was on the University Supreme Court, and had some success. And then I graduate and I take my first job. Now, you got to understand something. I didn't take my first job because I even considered what I really wanted to do. That wasn't the point. What I did was I took the job that I thought made me look the smartest, okay? And that was a job with a company called Computer Sciences Corporation, which no longer even exists. CSC. It was a huge management and IT consulting company. I worked for this random division of it, which was CSC Credit Services. It was essentially the credit bureau in the middle of the country for Equifax through some weird marketing agreement that they had done years before I ever got there. And honestly, the whole time I was there, I really didn't know what the hell I was doing. I got recruited into by the CEO, who was the father of a girl I knew at SFA. I got recruited into the company by him, and he was awesome. Fantastic guy. Bob Denny. Bob, I know you don't listen to my podcast, but if somebody out there ever runs into Bob Denny that listens to the Jason Wright Show, let him know I think the world of him. I did then, I do now. And he took me under his wing, mentored me, but I was young. I was entitled. For some reason, the Peter Brady t-shirt wearing knucklehead that had graduated from Stephen F. Austin State University thought he was too good for this management training program that Bob Denny basically designed and put me in as the first person to do all these rotations through the company. I mean, I was in customer service, I was in sales, I was in human resources. It was awesome, incredible experience. But after about a year and a half, I decided to move on. And the long and short of that story is I basically just hopscotched around corporate America for 6 years. I was really good at interviewing and getting another job, in which I took full advantage of during the dot-com boom. I went and worked for several tech companies, worked for Enron for a period of time through a startup that I was a part of with some guys that were great, brilliant entrepreneurs that brought me in and gave me a little bit of skin in the game. And our only client was Home Depot, and that worked out for a while. And then I ended up, not Home Depot, that was Enron. And then I ended up at the Home Depot, kind of right where I started out with CSC. Bob Nardelli did not get the top job at General Electric, and because he didn't get that job, he became the CEO of the Home Depot, and he created this rotational executive program, very much like what GE had. He put it into the Home Depot, and so I did the same thing. I do this rotation where I'm going through all different facets of this of actually the Expo Design Center, which was a company that Home Depot owned at the time. So I went through that and traveling all the time, hated the work, couldn't stand any of it, but I needed a job, and that was the job I had at the time. Well, it was during this period, after 6 years of corporate America, that I decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I started trying to figure out a business that I could buy that obviously the barriers to entry had to be low. I didn't have a lot of money. I didn't really have a passion for anything. I had no ideas. It's not like I'd written some software package that I thought I could duplicate and monetize. I didn't have a hobby that I thought I could monetize, and I wasn't frankly good at anything. And in the 6 years that I've been in corporate America, I really hadn't developed a tangible, marketable skill other than being really good at interviewing, being the best dressed guy in the building, all these kind of soft skills that added up to not much of anything, to be honest with you. And so eventually I decided to buy a real estate company. And so the story starts out really, really good. I pulled off something at a very young age. I was 28 at the time, and I had never owned my own business in my life. I had never been in the real estate business, and I knew I just wanted to. My daughters were really young, and so I decided that I wanted to raise them in East Texas. We were living in Houston at the time, and I wanted to raise them back in East Texas in a smaller community. There really wasn't anything for me to do back home in Sulphur Springs. I tried to go back and build houses with my dad. He was a builder at the time, but he didn't want anything to do with that. He kind of looked at that as if I'd gone back to building houses with him, then he would be responsible for my living. And so that just was never going to work. And so I settled for something in between, which was Tyler, Texas, which is where I am now. And this was, God, I can't believe that was over 20 years ago when that happened. And I found a Century 21 office that I could purchase. My stepmom was really successful in owning and operating Century 21 franchises, and she told me, you should look into doing this. Eventually, she said, I think there's an office in Tyler, Texas you could buy. I spoke to the owner. We negotiated, and after, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months, I don't even remember, the timeline kind of gets fuzzy, I bought his business. How I bought the business is a really cool story in and of itself. Again, it's like that kind of Grant Cardone real estate deal where I bought an entire company with no money down. And as a matter of fact, I walked away from the closing of that business with $90,000 in my pocket. It was insane. You can read about that story in my book, Push Play, Taking Your Life Off Pause, where I talk about kind of life design and how I decided to make this bold move. And if you want to hear more about it, if you think I should do an episode on how I acquired that first company, because it really is a cool story. It is a success story. I'm gonna give credit to myself where credit I think would be due to anyone that pulled something like that off. That was successful. That was a success. But don't worry, the bad news is coming. That's why you tuned in. The title was catchy. I'm going to teach you how to destroy your business because I know how to do it. I've pulled it off. You can too, if you're not careful. So anyway, I pull off the acquisition and I am scared to death every single day. I didn't have a lot of money at all. The $90,000 that I pulled out of the building that I bought as part of the acquisition of the company, that's what I lived off of for basically my first year. And eventually, though, I got my legs. I started figuring it out. Had to completely turn I always tell people, I basically turned this real estate company upside down and shook it and put it back together piece by piece. And it was only by God's grace and some luck and a good market and a lot of other factors coming together that I had any success. But that's when the problem came for me, is as soon as I started having a little bit of success, I started doing stupid things. And I was in my closet the other day and I saw these boots. And again, if you're not watching on the YouTube channel, folks, these are beautiful Cayman belly. And if you know anything about boots, Cayman, they're very expensive. And these are blackjacks. These are blackjack custom made boots. They actually have, I'm going to hold these up to the camera. They actually have a Texas star here, and they have my initials, JFW, right down here. And they're beautiful. And I have also the matching belt at home. And whenever I started making a little bit of money, I started buying stuff like custom made boots. And I want to tell you right now, one of the first mistakes a lot of entrepreneurs make is when they start making money, they start spending money on things that have nothing to do with their business. Because you have to understand something. I was just coming out of the woods. I was just starting to feel like I was kind of making it. I could pay my bills. I could pay myself. I had money coming in to take care of the household. I was no longer dependent on the $90,000 that I had leveraged to get me through that first year. And as soon as I started making it, I wanted to look like I was making it. So I did things like bought a bunch of suits. I bought suits, which, by the way, I mean, there was no reason for me to even wear suits, but I did a lot of time. And I started buying custom boots. This pair represents probably 5 other pair that I have made. And these, I think at the time, I don't know what they would cost to have made now, but they cost about $1,000 plus the custom made belt. And I'm not bragging about that. In fact, I'm rather disgusted with myself as I look at these boots. They're great boots and I've kept them, but they remind me of this stupid folly that I made. So I'm going to tell you something right now. If you're an entrepreneur and you're thinking about going out on your own, you need to make a deal with yourself right now that for the first 5 years, you're not going to spend any money on anything frivolous. And if you do, you pick one thing, you set a goal, and you make sure that the business has certain metrics that it has to meet, and you might reward yourself. I don't have a problem with that. I don't think that's a bad deal. But whatever you do not go out and start buying silly things that you don't need. One of the really silly things that I did, and this is another, I guess we'll call this one of the first ways you can destroy a business, is to start buying a bunch of crap that you don't need. One year, I'd had a really good year, and I was going to have a pretty big tax liability. And it was about the time that Congress passed a bill as part of the tax code where if you bought a vehicle that weighed a certain amount, essentially that it could be used for farm equipment or hauling things, that you could depreciate the entire thing all at once up to $75,000. And this is where people would start at the end of the year buying a car and leveraging that as a tax write-off. Well, I bought a Hummer, an H2, not one of the big H1s, not one of the little bitty H3s, but the H2. Remember, that was the one that most people had, that obnoxious bro-looking thing that people would drive around in. Well, I bought one of those. I had to completely reconfigure my garage for this damn thing. I had to take out a center beam and put in an I-beam and raise the roof, not the roof, but like the opening of my garage door a little bit just to fit this stupid thing into my garage. It was so asinine and stupid. But here is the poetic justice in that. The first day I get it, there's a little hitch that holds the tire on the back, that the pin has fallen out. And so I have to strap it together. I have to strap it closed with a bungee cord. I'm driving along with my buddy, showing him my new Hummer, and all of a sudden I hear this, whoop, bam, this loud just pop. And I look back, and the back windshield is just completely shattered. What had happened is that bungee cord had come undone and popped up and hit the back windshield, shattered it. And this was like within 5 days of owning it. Well, and by the way, so listen to this. So I've already spent all this money I don't guess I'd spent the money yet for the garage, but that happens. So I have to go spend $750 on a back windshield. And then I spent all the money getting the garage reconfigured. And then not long, I must have only had it for like 3 or 4 weeks. I'm at the gym, and the guy that I bought it from, he was the used car director at one of the larger dealerships here in town. He comes in laughing, and we were supposed to do there was something, I guess it was the hitch. He said, this Hummer is new enough. It's still under warranty, so I should be able to get that replaced for you. Well, whenever he turned it in to try to get the warranty work done, he found out that even though that Hummer, I think it supposedly had 25,000 miles on it, in reality, it had like 80,000 miles on it. It had had warranty work done on it in Arkansas. They noted the miles then at 80, but somebody had rolled them back before taking it to the auction, which this dealership that I bought it from bought it. And so it was just a total mess, but and they took the Hummer back. It was gone. And so then I bought another truck, and all of a sudden I started doing that. Like a lot of you who are already small business owners, you're doing this. You start buying vehicles. For some reason, a lot of entrepreneurs think they have to have new cars and nice cars. It's one of the traps I think a lot of entrepreneurs find themselves in, is because you feel so broke a lot of the times. I remember telling people back whenever I first started, it's like, I control a lot of assets, because I did. I mean, it didn't take me long. I mean, I had a net worth of over $1 million, but by the time I was like in my early 30s, but I felt broke all the time because it was tied up in assets and real estate. And so when you get a little cash, you want to exercise that you want people to think of you, or at least I did. And some of you, this doesn't mean anything to you because you're a badass and you're not in the matrix and you're not concerned about what others think. You get your head down, you're making money, you're doing the right thing. And you're the ones that I envy. Go share your story with other people, because I'm the example of what not to do, or at least I was back then. I wanted people to believe that even though The reality I was leading was stress, little cash to my name, sometimes feeling like I was not going to make it from one month to the next. I didn't want anybody knowing that. So I thought if I could buy some custom made boots and if I could buy a Hummer or some other nice truck or whatever. I mean, one time I was driving this King Ranch F-250. For those of you who don't know what trucks are, an F-250 is a 3/4 ton truck. It's the big one. It's the one that people use to haul stuff. This thing would haul a bulldozer if I needed to. 4-door King Ranch is, and if you don't know what King Ranch is on the Ford, it is like top of the line with these special King Ranch leather seats and all this stuff, and it's very expensive. I had one of those, 4-wheel drive, F-250. I never took it off-road, and I never hauled anything. Dumb, stupid, moronic, but it made me look successful. All of these things, all this spending frivolous money on things that don't make your business better are ways to destroy your business. That brings us to another way to destroy your business, is to take your eye off the ball and focus on things that will not grow or enhance your business. And that's where this comes in. You see this? For those of you watching, you see that this is a Southern Methodist University cap. And for those of you not listening, that's what I'm showing is a Southern Methodist University cap. At some point, I decided that I need, well, not at some point. From the time I graduated SFA, now remember, I told you, I was the first member of my family to ever graduate from college, right? And so I went to Stephen F. Austin State University. Axum Jacks, loved the Lumberjacks, but let me tell you something. Goldman Sachs, McKinsey, Bain, Boston Consulting Group, companies like that are not recruiting from SFA. And I knew it. I still thought I needed I needed some other credential that would show that I was important and I just needed the credentialing. Okay. I had a real inferiority complex, and I thought that the credentialing would make me look important, look smart. I worked around MBAs, especially when I went to Home Depot, the program that I described earlier. Most of the people there, they were all MBAs. I was the rare exception. And not only were they MBAs, but they were from like Wharton, Kellogg, HBS. I mean, really, really good schools. And here I was, undergrad, Stephen F. Austin State University. And so at some point, I decided I needed to go ahead and get my MBA. And I always wanted to go to SMU for some reason. For those of you outside of Texas, SMU is it's where a lot of very wealthy Texans end up. In fact, a lot of West Coasters come to Southern Methodist University. It is definitely a rich kid's school, has good academic standards and everything, but it's kind of like, it's just a special little place in Highland Park. And so it was one of those deals where I thought if I can at least get to SMU and get an MBA from SMU, then I get to get plugged into this really high money Dallas network, and those people will accept me, and no longer will I have to lead with, when people say, where'd you go to college? I went to SFA, and like, oh, okay. I mean, look, we live in America, and that's so much of how we judge people is judged by credentialing and that sort of thing. And so I end up going to SMU, which drained me of resources, of time, of energy, and money. I mean, at that time, an MBA from SMU costs $108,000. I bet now it's probably closer to 130, 140. I haven't looked it up in a while. But, and I want to be clear. I'm not saying that graduate school is a bad thing. I'm not saying that getting an MBA is a bad thing. And I'm not saying that I totally regret it. There was one time when I did, but I can tell you right now, there are some business deals that I've gotten into. One really important one that I'm in right now, that if it hadn't been for my time at SMU, then I wouldn't have gotten it. So I don't want to bash it too much, but I can tell you this. If I had just foregone my MBA and instead focused on how can I scale and build the best real estate company in all of East Texas, make acquisitions, do the recruiting, have good sound training, just really, really focus all my heart and passion and everything and my attention, my focus on building an incredible company, then I probably would have been better off than I'll ever get from my MBA. And I can tell you that being, over a decade past having received my MBA, it's like everything else. It's weird. Now, some of you are climbing a corporate ladder. You're going into private equity or something to that effect, and this doesn't apply to you. You need to go to SMU or wherever, Harvard Business School or Cal. You need the MBA to kind of enhance your career. So this is not a universal statement, but some of you, you've been thinking about it, and you know what happens? It's just like everything else. It's like a car. You get it, and you're real excited for a while, and then all of a sudden it wears off. There were some big pros to it. I mean, an incredible network. My cohort was very special. Some of my best friends in the whole world. So again, I'm not saying that it was totally a bad decision, but what I am saying is I do think that pursuing my MBA helped lead to the demise of my first business. It was one of the ways I destroyed my first business. Thirdly, being in charge but not acting like you're in charge. So one of the things that I remember getting so frustrated about in those early years as an entrepreneur is when I would have agents, because I had a real estate brokerage, like I mentioned. I did real estate investment, and then I owned a brokerage that basically funded my real estate investments. And I had as many at one time as nearly 70 agents. And I was a very hands-on guy. I didn't hire anybody to run the company like I should have. And so these agents would come to me and ask questions and everything. They needed me, and I tried to be supportive, but I get so frustrated with why are they coming to me? Why are they coming to me? And I just get flustered and frustrated. And then I have to remind myself, well, who the hell else are they going to go to? You're the boss. And so that's one of the things that I would highly recommend you to be prepared for and to be willing to do, is to always be there and be engaged with your people. Teach them, train them, mentor them. Don't take your eye off the ball. And that's what it all comes down to with buying the stupid crap whenever you're starting out in business for yourself, or if you are now an entrepreneur, buying the stupid crap that takes your eye off the ball. And don't let something like needing affirmation in the form of another credential like an MBA, or wanting to have the outward appearance of success like custom boots and custom suits and things like that. I used to have guys come to my office and size me for a tailored suit as though I'm like some Wall Street fat cat or something. What the hell was I doing? It was so dumb. And, I hope that if you are a young entrepreneur right now, I'm 49 years old. I was 28 at the time. And I look back and on one hand, I think how amazing that to uproot a family from a big city, come to a town. I had no family or friends here in Tyler. I'd never been in the real estate business in my life. I'd never owned my own business. I did a lot of cool things. I mean, when you look at it, and that's the thing that's why I want to bring this out, is because if you read that book, which none of you have or will, that I mentioned earlier, Push Play, Taking Your Life Off Pause. I wrote that book when I was like 35 or 36 years old, trying to talk about all the highlights and the success. Well, that was kind of stupid of me, because when you think of, if you can read a book by, I don't know, somebody like either about Elon Musk, or even though I don't read or follow any of his content, but like I mentioned earlier, Grant Cardone, somebody like that. You compare somebody like Grant Cardone to Jason Wright. Jason Wright is no comparison. I'm not even close. So why should I try to give you advice in that regard about all the wonderful things I'd done at that age at 35? When what I should have done is waited, been patient, wrote it out a little bit to where I am now, to say, I had some success, I had some wins, but you know what? I also completely mucked it up. And I don't want you to do that. Now, the business, I ended up selling the business, and it was fine. I never went broke or bankrupt. It wasn't that kind of a failure. By God's grace, in spite of myself, that's never happened. And it's a wonder that it didn't happen. I mean, when you're buying cars and boots and suits and a bunch of crap you don't need, there's a good chance that something like that's going to happen, but it didn't. But at the same time, I was never as successful in that business as I could have been, because I took my eye off the ball. I started doing all those stupid things that no one should ever do. Being able to own your own business, to control for a moment your own destiny, I wrote in the book, Push Play, Take Your Life Off Pause. The reason why I love being self-employed is because even if the economy goes bad and I might lose my job, I can see it coming way off in the horizon. It's not like today some small business or some guy that owns a tire shop right now. It's not like he opened up this morning and by this afternoon he found out he's going to go out of business. No, if he was going to go out of business, he would have known well in advance. It's not like corporate America where all of a sudden you get called into HR and you've got an HR rep and your boss and they start discussing your exit package and you're shocked and your life has changed. That's what I love about small business and being an entrepreneur is you at least kind of have some control of your destiny. And so I say that because you got to realize if you are either self-employed now or you're looking to get into it, it's a blessing. It's a gift. It's awesome. It's what so many people want. Going back to SMU, it was one of the craziest things that I learned once I got there was that I was in this cohort with all these people that I thought were so much smarter than me. And they were. And that's not false humility. These were very bright, accomplished people that had done undergrad at such cool schools and better schools than I'd been to. And they were sharp thinkers. And they worked for really big companies. And I used to admire that. I thought, well, here I am. I'm in Tyler, Texas, and got my little real estate business. And, it's nothing to brag about. And here these guys work for Raytheon and Accenture and Bain and all these really cool companies, Google. And what I realized, so many of them were there to learn how to do what I was doing, which is to be an entrepreneur, to have just your own little shop, to hang out your own shingle. And I was doing that and didn't appreciate it. I never appreciated it to the extent that I should have. And I hope you don't make that mistake. Appreciating your small business, this baby, this gift that you have worked your ass off for and maybe had some lucky breaks. I don't know how you got there or how you're getting there. But if you find yourself in that position, showing gratitude for that business, that gift, is not by buying crap, buying custom boots, getting education you don't need, doing things that will make you look successful. Nothing makes you look more successful than staying in business and making enough money to where you can provide for your family, you can educate your children, you put food on the table. That and you know what? Who gives a damn what anybody else outside of the four walls of your business thinks? What does your spouse think? What do those kids think about the life that you're providing them? Keep that nucleus small of the people that really matter. And guess what? My daughters, they never looked at my boots and said, wow, my dad's successful. He's got custom boots. They didn't look at that. And I doubt anyone looked at those boots and they probably thought he probably bought them on a credit card or something like that. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But the bottom line is, don't get distracted. Stay focused. Because let me tell you something. I might write another book. I'd love to outline all the different mistakes that I made during that first tenure as a small business owner. I have learned from it. Thank God. But if you are at the start of that journey of your own business, work your ass off, put your head, Robert Pelche, he's a car dealer that lives here in town. I don't even know how many dealerships Robert owns at this point, but it's a lot. I mean, Robert is wildly successful. And I remember whenever I first moved here, he and I used to go to lunch once a week, and he would mentor me. I'll never forget one of the greatest pieces of advice that he gave me that I did not adhere to. He said, put your head down and work as hard as you possibly can and don't look up for 10 years. And when you look up, you'll be rich. If you'll do that, you'll look up and you will be rich. I didn't do that. I kept looking up, looking to see who was looking at me and making sure I looked good. by buying stupid boots, getting more education than I needed, buying custom suits, buying cool cars, doing stupid crap that meant nothing when I should have been looking down at my business, studying my business and how to make it better. And then I would have looked up, and probably 20 years ago, I would have been as well off financially as I am now, and only adding to that. You live and learn. My goal is that in your endeavor to improve always and always, that if you happen to be blessed enough to have a small business, to be an entrepreneur, that you steward that business wisely. Don't spend money on stupid stuff. I'm Jason, and I'm out. Well, that does it for this episode of The Jason Wright Show. Thank you so much for listening. This has been a Texas Titan Media production. Fourth Wall did the music. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Please consider going out to jasonwrightnow.com and signing up for the Vitruvian letter. Also, please go out to iTunes. It takes like 30 seconds to just leave us a 5-star rating. It does wonders for the podcast. I would be so grateful. And with that, until we meet again, go crush it and endeavor to improve always in all ways. I'm out.